Hello, my name is John. This is the first in a series of videos for YouTube that I am making. I am going to be covering such topics as computer repair, game strategies, books I've read, classes I've taken, medical information, social myths. I'm going to be debunking a lot of things. I'm going to be looking at things from a very logical, very realistic perspective. The one thing that I appreciate more than anything is freedom of speech. I don't believe there should be any real restrictions in this, so whatever comments you wish to leave on my page or whatnot, feel free to do so. I have no problem with any of them whatsoever, with the exception of mindless, stupid trolling. And not just your, I'm going to leave a bunch of videos to antagonize a bunch of people. That I don't have a problem with. But when you leave comments like, you're stupid, and nothing else, no explanation as to why I'm stupid or why you disagree with me or anything like that, those are just going to get erased because those are just pointless. They're stupid. There's nothing to them. They're empty comments. They're done by people who are simple-minded, small-minded, and just don't want to deal with reality. That's generally what it is. So when you make an argument like, oh, you're fat, or you've got hair on your face, or, you know, whatever petty insult you have towards me, yeah, I'm going to leave those comments there, and then I'm going to make fun of you for being so petty and pathetic. That your only argument is to nitpick at my features, not any of the logic I've presented, not any of the information I've presented, but simply my, what I may or may not look like. Oh, that's a stupid sweater, so you should get off YouTube. Yeah, I'm going to mostly ignore those or make fun of you for making comments like that. But saying, oh, you're stupid, or you're gay, yeah, I'm just going to delete stuff like that. Some of the things I will be covering is, one of the social myths I keep running into is people calling schizophrenia a disease. Okay, it's not a disease. It's a mental disorder. One way you can tell the difference between something like a mental disorder and a disease is a disease has to be diagnosed by a doctor. I live in America, so I'm applying these rules only to America. A disease has to be diagnosed by an actual medical doctor, okay? A psychologist is not a medical doctor. Psychologists are the ones who diagnose schizophrenia. Hence, it's a disease. Hence, it's not a disease. When you're talking about herpes, that's a disease. It has a pathology. The very definition of the word disease will define what can and cannot be a disease. A mental disorder cannot be a disease based on the very definition of disease, and vice versa. A mental disorder cannot be a disease based on the actual word of a disease. These are clinical definitions for a very specific reason. So you can test to see whether or not someone has herpes. It's a simple blood test. You can test to see if someone has AIDS or bronchitis or a whole bunch of other diseases. Mental disorders are done by a subjective checklist. Are you bipolar? Well, how do you feel? Not blood test. Not coughing into something to see if something's in your throat, like a succum test or, what have you. So there you go for stuff like that. And later I will be adding on pages from my actual anatomy and physiology book where on one side it has schizophrenia, mental disorder, and on the exact same page it has Parkinson's disease. The thing about these two are they're very similar. The thing with schizophrenia is, I believe, and I have to double check this information, your brain is producing too much serotonin. And these neurochemicals are being passed from one neuron to another. What's happening is you're getting a little bit of a feedback, so they either have auditory hallucinations or auditory and visual hallucinations. Visual hallucinations are far more rare. There's also 5 different kinds of schizophrenia. Most people are mostly familiar with paranoid schizophrenia. And with that, you have some very interesting results and some very interesting people. That being said, with Parkinson's disease, you have not enough serotonin. And when these people tend to over-medicate themselves, and it's very difficult to properly medicate yourself, they tend to start having schizophrenic episodes based on their drug alone. Schizophrenia is usually due to either genetic factors or, in some cases, brain damage, where they are hit or they get damage to either the temporal lobe or the frontal lobe. Now, when you have damage to the temporal lobe, you sometimes have a misdiagnosis of schizophrenia when it should be Werner syndrome. Werner syndrome is when you think of the word knife, but instead you say fork. Usually people are thinking of too many things, and neurons are being all jumbled up in your thoughts because you're keeping all these things in your mind, and you say one thing but you mean another. With Werner syndrome, it's like that times 1 billion. Every word they say is not the word they intended to say. It's like a bad feedback loop. You go, chair, monkey have to go to the bathroom in water tank when they wanted to go to the fridge and eat something. That's just an example of that. But such things like that do occur, and misdiagnosis happens all the time. But it's very difficult to tell the difference between the two because the way they talk is very, very similar. And once again, you can't get a blood test for this. Now, I think the best you can do is an MRI. So if there are any doctors out there who would like to elaborate this, and I'm reiterating here that medical doctor. A psychologist is not a medical doctor. It's not a real doctor in the sense we're talking about. And on this note, a psychologist can't even prescribe drugs. You have to go to a psychiatrist, which is a medical doctor of psychology. A medical doctor is a psychiatrist is a real doctor in the sense we are talking about, but a psychologist is not. The psychologist diagnosed you with schizophrenia, while the psychiatrist prescribes your drugs, but doesn't usually diagnose you themselves. Like I said, feel free to disagree with me on anything, but before I agree or admit to being wrong, you have to show me proof. And I will always say I stand corrected, or some phrase similar to that when admitting to being wrong. But you still have to show me proof. Outside of that, enjoy your day. Feel free to leave comments and be generous to those around you, because that's how you make a better world.